Greetings. It's time for a Simmers Morning Skate. Rob Simpson for SeattleHockeyInsider.com. And what a distinct pleasure it is, I should say, to have this distinguished young man, Paul Edmonds, the voice of the Winnipeg Jets. Paul.
Distinguished,
You know,
young.
just go with it. Go with it.
Sure, I will. Glad to have you.
I'm going to
Glad
start.
to have me as part of it.
I'm going to start the clock.
I couldn't refuse the pay, right?
No.
So
yeah,
I had to come on.
Take what you can get. I'm throwing it out there. All right, I'm starting the clock. That is Paulie, and we've got 6 minutes to talk about the Jets and the Kraken. How about what a weird last year. 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. These are competitive clubs. Winnipeg wins once in a shootout, once in overtime, and Seattle wins in regulation 3-2. What were you had a tough schedule coming into Seattle last year twice. Other than that, what do you remember?
Well, I mean, judging by the scores, they were tight games. There's no question about it. I mean, you get a team that is a second-year team, a sophomore team that has 100 points and finishes above you for one of the wild card spots. I mean, they've vastly improved and used the model of Vegas to build their team. And in a short period of time, made some noise, slayed the Dragon against Colorado in the first round of the playoff series, and then gets into the second round. I mean, they've done a very good job, Ron Francis, Dave Haxtell, but they play tough. They play hard, and you're going to be in for a tight game. And all three games were one-goal games, and the Winnipeg Jets ended up winning at home. But then the two games where they played in Seattle were kind of tough because they were both on back-to-backs, and they were both afternoon games. They weren't 7 o'clock starts. They were 5 o'clock starts, I believe, in Seattle. One of them was for the Jets to fly from Calgary after playing that night, crossing the border, and then playing Seattle the next day. And then the next time that they came and did that, which was about a month later, they had to do it from Vancouver, which is an easier flight, of course, but nonetheless, you still have that border, hindrance to kind of cross. So I just kind of felt that the two teams, every time they got together, were always competitive. I think certainly when you have Brandon Tanev wanting to show his old team that they maybe should have signed him to an extension and didn't. He's certainly, I think, a great player for the Seattle Kraken, kind of embodies what they want to be. So there's always a little bit of the inner workings and the intricacies of the game in the series. Have they developed a rivalry, Simmer? I'm not sure just yet because that takes time and they're not in the same division, albeit the same conference. Perhaps maybe 3 more games this coming season might determine whether they get a little bit more angst. Angst always developed into a rivalry or vice versa. You don't know which one comes first. But I think that the two teams can bet on the fact that both are going to come to play in every game that they play against each other in the 6 previous meetings. That would be reflective of certainly the series and what to expect going forward between these two teams.
Now, when you bring that up, just keep in mind, not only will there be the rivalry factor late in the season, it is late in the season. This might be determining a lot more than that. This could be Western Conference playoff opportunity or seeding back-to-back, home and home in March, early March. That's the first time the two teams see each other. And then they play one more time in April. So 3 games, all very close to the end of the season, could have a huge impact. Winnipeg Jets, Paulie, have to maybe be the mystery. I mean, I know they got in last year. They played a 5-game series. Vegas lost. But it's a weird team. So many expectations. You got about 3 minutes left. No more Blake Wheeler. Start there. Addition by subtraction or no? And then what's the deal?
Okay, well, you lose 27 goals with Dubois. You lose 16 goals with Blake Wheeler. You lose some leadership, some veteran savvy. There's no question about it with both those two guys, especially your former captain. But then you made a big deal and a big splash in that trade with Pierre-Luc Dubois with Los Angeles. And you've gotten 23 goals back in a breakout year in Gabriel Velarde. You've got Rasmus Kupari, who's now signed to another 2-year contract along with Velarde. And you've got a proven NHLer in Alex Iafallo. And all of those guys have added to the forward depth. So, yes, you've subtracted, but you've added. And have you made up the goals? I think you have, certainly in what you've gotten back with the goals that are leaving your team. if the offense goes, you have to replace the offense unless you really want to get tight on defense. And the Winnipeg Jets have a great goaltender for sure, but I think that this makes them a bit of a different team. It makes them more deep on the forward core. But certainly, I think when you have a longtime veteran like Blake Wheeler moving on and signing a one-year deal with New York, he's going to be missed. And then Pierre-Luc Dubois, just a big body at center. But they've hung on to Mark Scheifele. There's a question mark there. What happens this season? And July 1st, of course, he's a pending unrestricted free agent. Same with goaltender Connor Hellebuck. Are some pieces here that are going to help this team be competitive? I believe so. I believe the trade with the Kings did that. There's not a lot of movement, and there hasn't been a lot of volatility with this roster other than that trade. There's some guys that are pushing up, and I think they've done a real good job to say, hey, we want to make the playoffs again for the second straight year, challenge for a wild card for sure, maybe one of the top 3 spots in their division. So I think the Winnipeg Jets didn't do themselves any disservice by moving those 2 pieces out. And in fact, I think that they have a bit of a different look and maybe a bit of a different culture in their room going forward this year. And that, I think, is going to be important for this younger team that's getting younger by the day to kind of move forward and still remain competitive in this market.
Yeah, chemistry-wise, because I remember Wheeler when he was with Boston and they shipped him out to Atlanta when he was a young man, and maybe chemistry-wise, or too many cooks spoiling the broth up top with that veteran leadership. So he moves out, and maybe that new mix will help benefit the Winnipeg Jets as they get going. Our clock has gone tickety-tockety, Paul, but that is some outstanding analysis. And these are 2 teams, Seattle and Winnipeg, that are going to be in that mix, battling in that Western Conference for a playoff position. If not, as you just mentioned, one of the top spots in the division, particularly for Winnipeg in the Central. We appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you, although hell, it's not until March, but I might have to make a special little trip out to Winnipeg at some point, just so I can.
Oh, make sure you do so in January. Don't come in the fall. Don't come in the spring. I'll come in January and February.
Yeah.
That's when you want to be here.
Maybe we'll go to Penticton for the preseason. Be well. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, Simmer.